Welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on another glorious week in the state of Texas. We're into the month of May, and if you're following and you know anything that's happening at the Texas Capitol and the Texas legislative session, that means the clock is ticking louder now. It's always ticking with only 140 days in every other year to get things done at the Texas Capitol during our state legislative session. But you get into May, and particularly, today's May 8th. We're getting into that second week of May. And that clock and the timing starts to become a big issue, right? But there's still time to get a lot of good things done at the Texas Capitol. We're going to talk in detail about some of that today. Also, a lot happening this week at the Texas Capitol. I've been to the Capitol several times. Remember, we have a member of our team there every day during the legislative session. If you're new to the show, we talk about the issues of faith, family, and freedom in the arenas of the courts, the legislature, and the media. And some members of our team were almost up 24 hours for a hearing. But, look, when it's the 10 Commandments and things of that nature, when lives are on the line on the issue of life, that's what we do, right? Wherever we have to be. And look, the legislative process can be that way. It can run around the clock. And when hearings go long and they're on the floor a long time. And so, but we got a big announcement. We have a day of action next week. That is Wednesday, May 14th on the Texas Women's Privacy Act, day of action at the Capitol. One of our last opportunities to get a good group of people there, get your voice heard, because there's still time to get Senate Bill 240 passed, but we're going to need to get moving soon. And it always helps when a lot of people show up. We're going to have some incredible athletes, young ladies, their parents, and other people across the state that care about protecting women's privacy in the showers, bathrooms, and locker rooms. But I'm glad that we're talking about a lot of legislative things today because we have an incredible guest who knows all about this process and is probably considered an expert when it comes to these things, certainly getting legislation passed today. But let me tell you a little bit about him. He first served in the Texas Senate in 2006, was reelected in 2010, and then ran for office of lieutenant governor, was elected in 2014, reelected in 2018, and then in 2022. And during this time as a Texas Senate, he was a leader on the issues of life, of religious freedom. And I will say, and let me just for a few more things about his, because I know he always likes to mention this about his family. He's been married to his lovely wife, Jan, for 47 years. They've got 2 children and numerous grandchildren in their family. And I've had the honor of getting to meet so many of their members of his family over the years. But let me say this, when it comes to the issues of faith, family, and freedom and life in the state of Texas, in my 20 years of experience, I've not seen anyone finer. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is the clear leader on those issues, and that's why it's great to have him on the Texas Values Report today. Lieutenant Governor Patrick, welcome back.
Good to be with you, Jonathan. Thank you for everything you've done over these years. And Texas Values, you've always been a leader here in the Capitol, helping us get the votes we need sometime when we don't have the votes. Never a problem in the Senate. We always get these bills out, of course. And by the way, I'm going to have to update your numbers this year and actually have to update our numbers that we sent to you. We celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary in July. So it's been 50 with 8 grandkids and a growing family. We're very blessed.
Well, congratulations, sir. What an accomplishment. My parents reached that point recently, and, it's great to celebrate, great to reflect on. And I know that she's been such an incredible partner and key to your success over so many years. And from what I'm seeing your video, I'm not seeing your video. Ashley, are we okay on this video? Well, we can hear your audio, so you're doing fine. And so we'll see if that clears up as the show goes on. And listen, for people that are watching live on Facebook, share this, like this. I'm going to go ahead and share my feed from my personal account, just so I'm doing my part to make sure that more people can see this conversation that we're having in our show today. Make sure I get this shared, because we got a lot of important things to talk about. Before we get into the state legislative session, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, you had the honor to be with the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, in the Rose Garden last week when you were appointed to be chair of the Religious Liberty Commission. What an incredible honor. Tell us a little bit about that.
So after the election in November of last year, the president and I were talking. We have a great friendship, and we've been working together closely for now more than 10 years. I've been chair of his campaign every time in Texas. And we spend a lot of time together because Texas, look, things in Texas impact the entire country. So he's been here so many times, not just campaigning, but as president, the first round, and on the border, here with the oil and gas industry, all the things that make Texas go and America strong. He's heavily involved in. So we've spent a lot of time together. And after the election, we were talking, and we started talking about religious liberty because he had taken a strong stand on that back in his first term, as a matter of fact. And so we came up with this idea of a presidential commission on religious liberty. And we announced it last Thursday in the Rose Garden on National Prayer Day. And in my remarks at the time with the president, besides thanking him for this great honor to chair this incredible committee, and my committee members are unbelievable. I'll give you a few names in a moment. But I talked about the fact that I don't know of any president, Jonathan, that has used the name of Jesus more than he has. His Easter message from he and Melania was strong about Jesus. And at the same time, and we are a vast majority Christian nation, but at the same time, we respect all faiths, and he does too. And so this is about religious liberty for everyone. As I said in my remarks, Jonathan, there's an old saying, no one should come between a doctor and a patient. Well, no one should come between God and someone who's a believer or someone who's seeking God. That should be just sacred. And over the years, the left has chipped away, and along with the courts, about our religious liberties, which was this magnificent inheritance that we've been given by our founders and our Constitution. And we have a right to claim that inheritance. So this commission that will begin soon after I finish session will be sure, Jonathan, that we help educate all Americans about what their rights are, that we look and study the issue of separation of church and state, because the left has used that against us when they are always misleading people on that issue. But today, people don't know where they can pray, where they can't pray, where they can put a nativity scene, whatever it may be. And we want to be sure that the American people know what their rights are. And then we'll issue a report to him about this time next year, before the 250th anniversary of our country, on the maybe executive orders or legislation that Congress can pass to ensure that everyone has that right to talk to God anytime they want, wherever they want, whenever they want, without interference from government and sometimes in the private sector. So just to give you an idea of some of the people on the committee with me, there are 14 of us in total: Franklin Graham, Pastor Paula White, Dr. Ben Carson, Dr. Phil, who's a strong believer as well, Kelly Shackelford, Eric Metaxas. These are some of the leading, Cardinal Dolan, who right now is picking a pope on the other side of the world. So this is an outstanding commission. And as I said, I'm a pair of brown shoes in a room full of tuxedos with these church leaders, lay leaders, scholars, and I'm honored to have this opportunity to be chair of this, what I think will be one of the greatest commissions that any president has ever formed, because we're dealing with, number one, God. So our mission is to be sure we serve the American people, we serve the president, and most importantly, we serve God.
Well, there's no doubt about that. We're talking to, in our interview with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick from the great state of Texas, and we're having a little trouble on your video. We apologize. I think we might put up your professional headshot there until we see if we can get that video situation worked out. And listen, if you're watching the show on Facebook, you're listening, we're going to get into some real good details on the Texas legislative session, because we're just a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks of ending. But before we get to that, I want to just mention too, you mentioned Kelly Shackelford. He is one of the board members of Texas Values, my former boss when I worked at First Liberty Institute. So excited to have him on there. And I brought a little magazine with me, just so you know, I'm not wearing your lapel pin with the cross and the state of Texas flag and American flag. But when I took a picture with Governor Mike Huckabee, who's now in an important position for the Trump administration, you might be able to see it's probably a little small. I had your lapel pin on. So it's getting a lot of attention, sir. And a lot of people want to know where they can get one of those. And so we appreciate you spreading the word, far and wide, and being so generous with those lapel pins.
I think I've given out maybe, I'm guessing here, 40 or 50,000 over 10 years.
Wow.
I signed them about 11 years ago. And so I'll be sure you have plenty to give out.
Well, I appreciate that.
Sorry about our video issue. We're working on that on this end, but I'm here at least with my audio.
So let's turn to the legislative session. I was at the governor's mansion on Saturday. You were as well. school choice is now signed into law. Historic moment, historic piece of legislation. You know, you've led on this issue so many times, and the Senate's passed this bill so many times. Now the House passed it. Now you've got a speaker who's on board. So you had your leadership in the Senate and Dustin Burrows and the speaker in the House come together, along with just the incredible leadership by Governor Greg Abbott and, of course, Senator Brandon Creighton in the House, House member and Chairman Brad Buckley. But wow, what an incredible moment in a day. I mean, it was a great event at the governor's mansion for school choice.
Well, all of the people like yourself who were there, who came out, I think we had probably over 1,000 people there that day who came from all over the state, have been working on this issue. We've been working side by side for me since 2013 when I was an education chair and then became lieutenant governor. This was the 6th time we passed it out of the Senate this year. And finally, we did have a speaker who supported school choice. In fact, the bill passed, school choice passed, 86 out of 88 Republicans voted for school choice in the Texas House. And one of those who didn't vote for it was the former speaker. So now you know why it didn't pass when he was speaker, even voted against it now when it was just he and one other who voted against it. So, you know, you have to have leadership. And so on this issue, we've had a commitment from Dustin Burrows from the beginning that we passed school choice. And Jonathan, a real important point about this. This is the largest launch of a school choice program in the history of the country. It's $1 billion and opportunities for up to 100,000 students. When the lottery begins next year, we focus on children with disabilities, children in failing schools, children in poverty, but it's a universal school choice plan for everyone. And I'm very excited about it. And you mentioned all the people who helped get it across the goal line. Let me tell you, the key person who really got it across the goal line was Donald Trump, was President Trump. And here's the reason. Last session, as you know, there were a number of Republicans who blocked it. And so we took them on in the primary. And I think we defeated, if not everyone, maybe all but one or two. I think we took 15 House members out who blocked school choice or voted against it last time. And so he endorsed with me. And of course, Governor Abbott was involved. We were all three involved in getting the right people in place with all these new freshmen who were for school choice. And then on the day of the vote, Jonathan, I know you know this, but your viewers may not know this. On the day of the vote in the House, whenever that was, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, President Donald Trump called in and spoke to every Republican in the caucus and told them how important it was to him because this is one of his major national initiatives. So if we hadn't taken out those 15 Republicans who blocked it last time, in fact, they might have come back even stronger this time to be against it and say, well, you know, they tried to defeat us, but we held strong, and that's because we blocked school choice. No, they lost their positions, and many were chairmen. So you have to pass legislation, Jonathan. You have to have the right people in place in the right positions. And what I'm so blessed about is that I've had a great group of Republican senators every session. You know this. This is the strongest team I've ever had. We have 20 out of 31 members of the Senate are Republican. We are a Christ-centered body, and my job is easy because I have a great group of 20 Republican senators, and who the people have sent us over time.
Well, we're talking with Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick about the legislative session, school choice, historic moment. That bill is signed into law. You mentioned the strength of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and 20 votes now. There's a lot of bills. You see 20 versus 11. Not that many. Some that I pay attention to a little bit more. But I'll see the name Hinojosa, and I'm like, oh, wow, we got a Democrat on the bill. Oh, wait, no, that's Adam Hinojosa. And so it's kind of been a couple of moments, but where I've had to double look there or double check on that. But that, that number 20 has been so solid. It's continued to grow. And that shows a movement and a change in the criteria and the things that voters care about. And one of those issues, and I want to pivot to this too. I know there's some other bills we want to get past this session. School choice, big moment. But there's a lot of other things that I think, particularly with President Trump in office, right? All these things aligned, these election results that you talked about, gives us a historic opportunity to get some other things done.
Yes, absolutely. And Jonathan, on Adam Hinojosa, by the way, when I became lieutenant governor in 2015, one of my goals was to expand the Senate to bring in more Hispanic members. And so Pete Flores was the first ever Hispanic member voted in as a Republican. And then last session, Adam Hinojosa from the Corpus Christi area. So of our 20, it's really historic, and people have kind of overlooked this as we broaden our party. But the issues that the Republican Party, the conservative issues of faith and family and practical things like keeping, as our Senate Bill 240 and I think it's House Bill 239, keeping men out of ladies' rooms, and we hope to see that pass in the House. We passed it up really quickly in the Senate. These are values that just the average American stands for, and President Trump has realized that in Texas. We've known that, and we're expanding the base of our party, which is really important with the Black vote, with the Hispanic vote, and others, because the left has just gone wild and crazy in America, and so. Well, and as you know, we had 40 top conservative priorities, many about faith and family. We passed all 40 about a week ago. Most of them were passed a month ago. And so now we're just watching the House. Hopefully we get them all passed.
No, we're talking with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick from the great state of Texas. Senate Bill 240, the Texas Women's Privacy Act. This is a bill that we're having the day of action on next Wednesday at the state capitol on May 14th. But yeah, that bill passed the Senate a couple of weeks ago, comes over to the House. On the House side, it's got tremendous support, over 81 co-authors. There's at least one Democrat. So you've got bipartisan support on that issue. I imagine when it gets to the House floor, which we're hoping it does, and counting on that, you'll probably see some other Democrats get on board because they've started to see what voters want. You know, this doesn't have to be a right or left issue. This is about safety, and the numbers keep adding up of women and ladies, even at the state capitol. We've seen this issue happen, you know, and it's not just in bathrooms and government buildings that we commonly think of in schools and so on. It's in places like prisons and women's shelters. And so, but that bill's got tremendous support. It's in House State Affairs where Ken King is the chairman. And so, you know, we're hoping that that bill's going to get a hearing soon because it's one of those things where you just see so many. I mean, the governor has been public about his support of it. You have as well, and many others, women on both sides of the aisle. And so, look, I think there's still time for sure, but we don't want to run out of time. I mean, Senate Bill 240, the Texas Women's Privacy Act, is one of those things that members can go back to their constituents on an issue they're going to be asked about. And I think that we're still in a position to get it done if it gets a hearing soon.
Yeah, and Jonathan, as you know, the Senate started working on that issue in 2017. Lois Goldwater carried the bill, and it was dubbed the bathroom bill, and I was made fun of, and Lois was made fun of, and we were also attacked, politically, and even her family, I know, got incoming, her kids in school. What are you doing? You want to keep men out of ladies' rooms? It was so common sense to me in 2017, and that's really when the movement started. Because Obama, if you'll recall, in 2016, I know because I ended up being on an ABC live broadcast debating him a little bit on this issue or speaking on the issue. I guess it wasn't a debate, really. They didn't allow us to go toe-to-toe, just speak on the issue. But Obama had said, we're not going to give you any federal funding from the Department of Education if you don't allow boys and girls locker rooms for boys to play girls sports. And I said at the time, you can keep your 30 pieces of silver. I think most people know what that biblical reference means. We don't need your money. We'll fund our public schools without you. We're not going to allow that. And look, we got a lot of pushback, even from some Republicans in the corporate world. Dan, why are you getting involved in this issue? Because we saw what was coming. And, it peaked in America. And now, everyone, Riley Gaines and people that and I know, and all the women around America who have stood up for this, there's no business of having a man in a ladies' room, period. Just none, period. And then on girls' sports, they should not be playing. It's not fair to girls.
That's right. Well, and Senate Bill 240 just makes it clear we've got a consistent law across the state of Texas that everyone has to follow. And there's some enforcement that's in place with this legislation so that people don't have to feel like, oh, I don't know what to do, or maybe I'm going to get in trouble. All they have to do, if you're a school board, a city government, whatever position you're in for government, and it's a government building, or you're just a member of the public, you can say, I'm just following state law. And the state law is very clear what male and female is based on. There are rules, they're in place, and we have the right to enforce them. A couple other issues, too. Speaking of faith, Senate Bill 10, the 10 Commandments bill, is already out of House committee, already passed the Senate, so it's in a pretty good spot to still get done. And, I think there's some bipartisan support on that we'll see. And, there's you see with all the propaganda going on in schools now that all they got to do is move some of that stuff out of the way on the billboard or the wall. There's going to be plenty of room for a Ten Commandments monument or Ten Commandments display.
Yeah, we passed that bill and the prayer bill out to allow students to pray in their private time in schools. And this would be one of the issues that we're looking at on the Presidential Commission on Religious Liberty, obviously. But we passed that bill out. And I think from memory, 4 of my 11 Democrats voted to put the Ten Commandments back in our schools. Look, some of these issues, again, are just common sense. It's what our country was founded upon, the Judeo-Christian ethic. We were birthed in prayer, and our Constitution, how it was written, and our founders. And so we're going to be addressing all these issues on our Presidential Commission coming up soon. Once I'm out of Boston, we begin our hearings in Washington, D.C. So, Jonathan, this is an exciting time for America. I want you to think about this. And you've been in the culture war forever, and I have been too, with just practical things. I mean, we respect people's right to have a different opinion on issues, but some of these issues are just clear where the majority of American people are. And so I think a lot of people in the last 4 years felt we had lost a culture war, that we were woke and we'd never come back. And we're actually now winning the culture war. And in the last several years, we've had court decisions of going in our favor after decades where they didn't go in our favor. I said to the president back in January when I was up there for a meeting, I said, Mr. President, I know you wanted to win back to back. And a lot of people think he did. I said, I know you wanted to win. I said, but here's the best thing that ever happened. It was God's time, not your time, because the left went crazy during the last 4 years with open borders and 15, 20 million people coming in, and now we have less than a couple of hundred a day. We closed the border instantly with the president. We knew we could do it, and you had the wokeness everywhere you could look, the DEI, the weakening of our military, our inflation was sky high. And what happened is they thought Donald Trump was through. They thought the Republican Party was through. They thought they'd be in power, Jonathan, for the next decade or more. And they went so wild on the left with people like AOC and others leading the charge. And just they went crazy.
And speaking of issues that, go ahead.
Let me just finish that. And people woke up in America and said, I had no idea how far left the party had been. And so he comes back in power now with a mandate from the people and all of our red states to reverse all of this. So we're winning America back.
One issue too, Senate Bill 33. I know you've always been a pro-life supporter, pro-life leader, if not the strongest pro-life leader from the state of Texas, and certainly in the Texas Senate as Lieutenant Governor. Senate Bill 33 cuts off these local governments who've been trying to use tax dollars to have women fly different states and so on to get abortions. I know that's a priority bill. You got passed in the Senate. There was a hearing on it yesterday. We testified in favor of it. That's a key pro-life bill that we need to get passed, and I'm sure the support's there in the House as well if we can keep moving.
Yeah, look, a lot of the bills you're talking about that may be hung up right now, and hopefully they start moving. Some are and some aren't. If they're brought to the floor, the Republicans will vote them out, and some Democrats will join them. Some of these bills you just can't, quite frankly, be against, and it's just a matter of getting them out of committee and to the floor. One other quick bill that we're focused on, and that is banning THC. A lot of people don't understand what that is, but here are the alarming numbers. In the last 3 years, roughly, over 8,000 smoke and vape shops have opened up around our schools in Texas. That's their target market. No one knows what's in these. We're not talking about the CBD that people may go down and put on their knee or feel good about it. I'm talking about THC that is synthetic cannabis, stronger than you could buy from a drug dealer. And we're seeing, we've had, I think, about a 500% increase to the poison center over THC. We had a young man, 15, in Houston in February, who ate some of these gummies that he bought or someone gave him, and he went home and shot and killed his mother. We've had testimony from women and mothers and wives that have lost total control of their spouses or their children. There even one woman said, I'm afraid to be in the room with my 17-year-old because it creates paranoia and schizophrenia. And so that bill is really important to to get right. It's passed the Senate to ban it. It's over in the House. I think it's coming to the floor soon because a lot of people don't know the danger of it. But every pediatrician, every doctor, every superintendent, every police department wants this banned. To put in perspective really quick, Jonathan, it's become an $8 billion industry in less than 4 years. 8,000 or more shops around Texas, around our schools. To put that in perspective, Jonathan, you think you see a McDonald's and a Starbucks everywhere. There are only about 1,100 McDonald's in the state, or about 1,200 Starbucks, but there are over 8,000 of these shops selling these products to our kids. So that's a real big issue for me, and that's
unbelievable.
What we need.
Well, look, I know as we get into May, the governor's got a priority item, emergency item. Bail reform hasn't gotten done yet. There's the, the teacher funding. Is there going to be a special session?
I hope not. I hope not. We're working. The relationship that we have with the House this session is better than it's ever been. But look, the next 3 weeks are the key. A lot of great things have happened, but a lot more great things have to happen. But we're working well together. And if we continue to work together and not against each other, like really what happened with Joe Strauss and happened with Dave Phelan, where it was just impossible over there. Now that we're working together, that we have a real chance of getting here for the first time in a long time, out on time on June 2nd. So, but we're in
okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just going to, some must bills have to pass, obviously.
Yeah. No, you're right. Okay. I know you've got your background in sports broadcasting. Boy, our U of H Cougars, they got so close again. But, I was there cheering for them. I'm sure you were. But there's always next year, right?
Well, you know what? I was an old sportscaster back in the 80s when they went to the Final Four several times with Phi Slamma, and it's heartbreaking actually for them because they've been there as a school so many times in the finals. When we thought they were going to win, they had the game in hand, and it didn't quite work out. But great team, great school, and it's always next year. Hey, thank you, Jonathan. I got to get.
God bless you. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has been our guest today on the Texas Values Report. Okay, I'm going to go up a couple wrap-up comments. Look. This is my show, but when the Lieutenant Governor's on, I'll go as long as he's willing to go. And I apologize. There was a couple times I could hear him, and I wasn't sure if he was done talking. I didn't mean to cut him off. But he and I are both talkers, so we rarely take breaths, but we're trying to get a lot of information into a short amount of time. But what an honor, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and your team for making time today for such an important conversation. We're going to talk about these issues as well on May 10th in Fort Worth. That is this Saturday. Still time to get a couple of tickets. Going to have some great speakers, raise some money, give you an update on where things are legislatively, some things we talked about today. Maybe some bills are going to be moving that we talked about today in the next couple of days. We hope so. But a last chance to make a big push, get people excited, get some marching orders, and hopefully we'll get some funding in place that will help us for this next 2 to 3 week stretch. But Brooke Slusser, former collegiate athlete who's been in the middle of the Save Women's Sports and the Texas Women's Privacy issue. She's been down to the Capitol to testify. Dr. Eitan Heim, who the Biden Department of Justice tried to put in jail for 10 years for blowing the whistle on Texas Children's Hospital for the sex change issues on kids. He's going to be our keynote speaker. Tim Hare, the county judge from Tarrant County, is going to be our MC. Rafael Cruz, Father Ted Cruz, is going to do the opening prayer. Just a lot of other great people there, too, that are sponsoring the event. Lieutenant Governor Patrick can't be there, but he's going to be a sponsor of the event. Title sponsors, Vince and Mona Puente. And I know that Congressman Roger Williams is going to be there, and just a lot of great people. So still some opportunity if you want to make it to that event. And I know we went a little bit longer. Listen, day of action next week, May 14th on Texas Women's Privacy Act. All right. And there's some other bills we're working on, too. This one, I think, look, it's been our top priority all session. It's something that we want to continue to see move. But I think it's going to, elected officials are going to need to hear from you, especially in the House. And if your state House member is on state affairs, it's even more important, right? And we'll help you all that on Wednesday, or you can call our office or go to our website, or you can use our handy Texas legislative booklet and guide if you got one of those, so you know who's on that committee. Chairman Ken King chairs that committee, and I think it's 9 Republicans, 6 Democrats. Check the list of that. But call your representative too and say, hey, I know you're not on that committee, but I bet you would want that to come out of committee too, because you support the issue. 81 co-authors on this bill, more than majority needed to get it passed. Listen, I'm out of time. Okay, what else was I supposed to mention here? There's another, who's going to be there on May 14th? Peyton McNabb, who was a guest of the president at his speech, is a former high school volleyball player. Her situation was awful. You've got to hear her story, but why it's so important to protect women. And also thanking our sponsor of this show, Eagle Peak Shooting Range. Listen, to do the work we do, we count on the donations of people like you. All right. So please go to our website at txvalues.org, make that tax-deductible donation today. And that's how together we can protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.